This video shows how to draw an ellipsograph in SolidWorks. First, I'm creating a new assembly. As a next step, I'm going to open my part files. In this case, I've drawn all files in one part as different configurations. Now I have to select the configurations, and I'm starting with the base. And if I want to insert multiple instances of one SolidWorks file, it's very handy to make the dialog, keep the dialog visible. Then I'm going to drop the base somewhere. I don't really care right now where. I'll correct it later. Then I'll add the sliders. I need 2 of those. Then 1 link, 2 bolts, and finally the pencil. Now I can close my dialog here. If I need to insert any components later, I have an Insert Components button up here. Assembling those parts together works with mates. A mate is a relation between different parts. First thing I'm going to do is I want to align my base with the origin of the assembly. I can click on the little triangles here on top of my parts, and I see that I can have an origin here, and my drawing also has an origin. It doesn't really matter if they are aligned or not, but for some reason I like them to be aligned. And one thing to notice is there's a little F in round brackets in front of the name here. That means it's fixed. This part I cannot move anymore. The first part that I insert is always fixed. The other parts I can still move around. So to move that part so that the origins align, I have to unfix it first. And I'm toggling between, unfixing it means toggling it between fix and float. Unfortunately, both start with an F, so the abbreviation is a little bit not so good chosen. Then I select both origins, the second one by holding down the Control key, and click Mate. SolidWorks automatically tries to guess which mate is best, and here it says guesses coincident and align the axis. I can click on the green check mark, and now the part cannot be moved again anymore. And if I click down, I have a little folder here with my mates, and I have my first I made my first mate. I can now add all the other mates that I need, and I'm going to start with the 2 sliders. I'm now doing it the other way around. I'm going opening up the mate preference pane and do all my mates in one go. First, the difference now is that I select the command first, and then the items that I want to mate. And first I click the 2 items, in that first case the 2 origins, and then the command. So I have to zoom in and turn my models a lot. First I want to say that this side should be aligned with that face of my assembly. I can click on the green check mark right here. Now I can move this part still around in all kinds of directions. Easier to see the effect of mating those 2 faces if I look from the front. So what I have to do is to make it slide along, I have to make that face from the base with that corresponding face of the slider. And now this one is in a way constrained to sliding around those that one axis of the base. I can continue with the other slider. Sometimes the parts end up misaligned. It's not a problem. I just have to finish my mate. Now this also slides around here. Then I'm going to mate the link, the red link. The bottom face should be aligned with one of those. I don't need to mate both because they are all in the same planar view. So I didn't really see an effect here, but because it was out of my viewport. So, but you can see it's now mated with the top here. And now I'm going to mate the two bolts. So so this one was also coincident. Now I have one bolt. I select the cylinder and one cylinder of that hole of one of the sliders, and it will be automatically be concentric. And I want to say that the bottom of the head is coincident with the top of my slider. And now I'm going to do a little bit more, and I'm doing the same for the second one. This cylinder is mated with the inner part of the hole. And now I can again select the bottom part of my head of the bolt and mate it coincident with my slider, with my link, sorry. So now I can still move around a few parts here. So the bolts move with the sliders. But I now want to have the thinner part of my bolt sliding around this shape here. And that's not a standard mate anymore, but an advanced mate. Advanced mates are a little bit more complex, and there's one that I'm going to need. I'm going to use here. It's the width mate. Width means I have two inner faces and one thing that slides in between. So now I can still move around my slider and my link as well. And as you can see, it's only it's not really a physical simulation. I can drag it through the material here. It's only a geometric constraint, the mate. So I'm going to add another width mate for my second bolt. And now I'm going to add a standard mate to finally add my pencil. Still have to click the green check mark, and the pencil I want to mate with, for instance, one of those inner sides of my hexagonal shape and my one pencil side here. And again, I have to choose the correct one. So this slides now here, so I want to select this face and that face as well. So now I should be only able to move this up and down, and all my parts are still geometrically mated, but behaving a little bit wildly. So now I'm going to mate the tip of my pencil with the top plane. I don't see the top plane here anymore, so I have to select it from here. And the tip is a little rounded shape, so spherical. So it will be tangent. And now I have to look exactly from the front, because there's a chance that it's tangent, the sphere is tangent from the wrong side, which can be easily corrected by finishing the mate command for once, editing the mate, and now changing the mate alignment. So this switches around the side of the sphere that you have to imagine at the tip here. So now I should be already almost able to draw an ellipse, but to do so in a controlled way, I would have to fix the bolts at one distance to the pencil, to be exact to the center of the pencil and the center of the bolts. And in my drawing, I created a few reference points that you can see here, and I'm going to use them as well for a mate. So I'm selecting the first one and the second one and saying this should be a distance mate with 60 millimeters. And again the mate from the pencil and from the far away point, that should be 90 millimeters. Now I cannot move the link in the long axis direction of my slider again, and this behaves now like a ellipsograph. If I look from the top, I can see that, just end my mate command, I can see that I can draw an ellipse right here. So I cannot, since the distance of the bolts to the center of the pencil is now fixed through my last two mates, the whole movement that's only possible is the one of an ellipse. If we want to have a more controlled view of the ellipse, I can draw another part. First of all, I could just insert a sketch in my assembly that would not be part of my SolidWorks part where all those, let's say, subparts are in. But I could create also a SolidWorks part from within the assembly with the Insert Components button. As you can see here, you can create a new part or a new assembly. There are only two types of components, parts and assemblies. So depending what you're opening up, because any assembly can consist also of any number of parts or sub-assemblies. So I'm going to create a new part here that's fixed for the moment and empty. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to unfix it and align the two origins. And now I can open this part in SolidWorks as a separate part. And in the top plane, I'm going to draw an ellipse with the same dimensions that I just used for my bolt distances. So from the center to the side, the long axis is 90 millimeters. And again, from the center to the top, short axis is 60 millimeters. The ellipse is still blue because I could turn it around. I need to say that those two parts are, for instance, horizontal. Now it's black, and I can exit this, go back to my assembly. And now it says that models contained within the assembly have changed because I changed the newly created part, and it asks me if I want to update, and I want to do so. So now I can see my sketch of the ellipse here. If I'm saving my file now, it will ask me first of all for a name, and it will ask me, do I want to create that unsaved component, that one part I created last, that extra part, inside of SolidWorks and not using an external file. That's called, it asks me if I want to save it internally or as an external file. I will want to create it internally, and internal parts in an assembly are called also virtual components. So now if I'm moving my ellipsograph, I can see that it really draws an ellipse. If I want to know the distance in a 45-degree angle from the tip of the pencil, for instance, if I want to do some measurements, then I would first proceed by adding another mate. One face and the other face, and I would say that need to say that there should be an angle of 45 degrees. This now means that I cannot move my assembly anymore, because now it's completely fixed by inserting that angle. And if I want to measure, for instance, from the center, the origin, my origin, to this part, I could use evaluate, measure, and now I have here my distance